Melissa Ice, founder and director of The Net here in Fort Worth, Texas. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Yeah, and Mel, why don't you tell us a little bit about what The Net is?
Yeah, The Net is just a local anti-trafficking organization. Something that we try to do is support survivors of sexual exploitation and trafficking and prostitution. And so one of the ways we do that is actually through community and relationships, because we believe that everyone is worthy of the chance to rebuild their lives. And so our goal is to hopefully put ourselves out of the job by forming dignified community and building safe relationships for survivors of trafficking.
Yeah, man, would God answer that prayer for sure. And what does genuine community look like for you and your family?
To me, I was thinking about this, and I feel like genuine community to me just looks like a safe place to be known where you don't have to be on. So often in our lives, that's the case. Whatever you're doing, especially if you're a leader, you feel like you have to be on, and genuine community is a place where that's not the case. I think it's also where you can just be yourself and share struggles, but in the midst of sharing those struggles, actually being met with the truth of who God is. Those are my favorite parts of community, is just being met with that truth when I really need it. And I think finally, genuine community to me, it's not a group of advice givers. It's not a group of head nodders, but instead it's actually friends who seek to infuse the gospel into the parts of our heart that really need it the most.
Yeah. And one of the things that, since you're local, I get to know about you is that as much as you and your husband both do for the city and in business and in the work within that and that kind of stuff, one of my favorite things is just knowing the community you have with literal neighbors around you who have been formed together and actually do that. They go so far beyond just the normal quote unquote neighborly relationships that many folks have and actually go deep into each other's lives. So it's cool to see that.
Thanks. Yeah. Try.
Yeah, sure. Well, and you mentioned trying, and it is hard, right? Like genuine community is hard to find. What have been some of the most difficult things for you as you and Jamie have pursued this? What have been some of the most beautiful things as you've come to see it, though, too?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I really feel like the hardest part of community is actually being intentional and consistent. Which sounds very simple and tactical, but gathering a group of adults who have responsibilities, who have commitments, who have jobs, who have kids, and trying to get them all into the same place at the same time, I feel like it's truly an act of God. And so that to me is the hardest part, is actually fighting to make that time possible. But I also think that in the midst of it being hard, meeting and gathering is so worth it. And so I think that it's absolutely something that we should be consistent in and should try to do despite those obstacles. And then I would say for me, my favorite part of community is just being prayed over by people who know me best. Prayer is the greatest gift of community, in my opinion, because it says, I see you, I hear you. Now let's go take this to our Heavenly Father, who actually knows your heart far better than I do. And so prayer reminds us all that anything we could ever need is found in Him. And so I can think of few things in life that feels more precious to me than being prayed over by someone who really knows me.
Yeah, I love that.
And wants to meet that need by taking me to the real answer and the remedy, which is found in Jesus. So
yeah. I love the tangibleness with which you said it made it so hard. Like just time, it is a real thing, and all of our time goes so many scattered places. And the beauty and simplicity, but difficulty of praying for each other. That's actually what we wrote on the last day of a Field Guide for Genuine Community, because for all of the things that we talk about, playing together and praying together is how we close the whole book, of going, if we can start with just those two things, actually enjoying each other and then lifting each other before the Father, then there's no better first step. Enjoying each other.
Absolutely.
And enjoyed by God. So I love that's one of your favorite parts.
Yeah.
As we continue to move out of COVID, as the net continues to move forward with its mission, what are some of your hopes as we start to regather for community?
Yeah, this is obviously, I'm biased with what I do and what I get to see, but I think my hope is that God's community would find themselves serving alongside one another to see God's redemption unfold in the dark and broken parts of our city. really having a front row seat to seeing him bring people that he made in his image to beauty from ashes is such a neat gift. And I think it does things and restores our hearts. I love Isaiah 58 says that just by serving the poor and loving the least of these, it makes our bones strong. Our healing will spring up speedily. There's so much reward to be found in it. And if we did that as a community, that's, to me, the greatest gift. Quick story, I did jail outreach this week with some friends where we got to meet. If we're doing jail outreach, we're meeting women in their darkest hour. And the goal is to offer them hope and encouragement. And the feeling of leaving the jail as God's people on mission with one another was the most exhilarating feeling. And one of my staff members actually asked me how I felt because I was tearing up walking to my car. And I just said, I almost feel like that was better than church. I see the value in church, and I love the local church, and I love Sunday mornings, and I wouldn't replace that with anything. But I just truly believe that sent people get to see and experience God's heart in a way that you can't if you aren't pushing back the darkness around you. And so that mutuality, that sentness, being on mission together is, to me, my greatest hope for community.
Yeah, I love that. And even in that, like some of the beauty that you just described is because you were doing it together. Because individuals will often do something like that, but there's a richness to what you just described. Even someone to notice your tears and to ask you that question. There's a richness to doing that together. And I know that's some of what you've seen in the net, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, which is really, it's a gift. Yeah, community in any form, whether it's being prayed over, serving people who are broken, just like we are, doing it together, playing together, celebrating together. It's all one of the best gifts and something I'm really grateful for post-COVID.
Yeah. Well, that's some of what we try to tackle in this book is try to how to live this out in just general everyday life and the highs and lows and even just the normalcy, the simplicity and mundaneness of everyday life. So Mel, thanks for modeling that kind of a life. And thank you so much for joining me for a few minutes today to talk about it.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me, and thanks for writing this book. It's very practical, and I know a lot of people will be transformed by it, for sure.
Thank you very much. That is our hope and prayer by God's Spirit. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.